When you look at the Warhammer 40k universe, the Tau should not be here. At all. They're tiny compared to the galaxy-spanning monsters that surround them. The Imperium alone could sneeze in their direction and wipe them off the map, while orcs and tyrannids chew through far bigger empires without even slowing down. By all logic, the Tau should have been stomped out the moment someone noticed their little corner of space. And yet, here they are, not only still alive, but expanding. New SEP worlds, shiny new tech, propaganda that actually works. It's like they're the only ones in 40,000 who read the rulebook on how to build a functioning society. They don't just survive, they thrive. So how does that happen? How do the underdogs of the 41st millennium, these blue-skinned upstarts, manage to hold their own in a galaxy where even the strongest empires are constantly on the brink of collapse? That's what we're digging into today. If you want to understand why the Tau keep punching above their weight, you've got to start with their caste system. Every Tau is born into a role, and that role defines their whole life. It sounds rigid, but here's the thing. It works. At the top are the ethereals. They're the spiritual and political leaders, and honestly, nobody knows exactly why the other castes listen to them so unquestioningly. Some people think it's pheromones, others think it's just centuries of conditioning. Whatever the reason, the ethereals keep the whole system glued together. Beneath them are the fire caste, the warriors. These are your battlesuit pilots, your ground troops, the ones holding the line against orcs or tyrannids. They live and die by combat, and they're bred for it, literally. Then you've got the earth caste, the engineers and builders. Without them, the Tau wouldn't have their sleek technology or their towering cities. The air caste started as colonists in low-gravity environments, so they're tall and lanky, perfect for piloting spacecraft and running the Tau Navy. And finally, the water caste, the diplomats and negotiators who spread the word of the greater good and make alliances that keep the Tau Empire growing without firing a single shot. The genius of this system is that it wastes nothing. Every Tau is pushed toward what they're best suited for, and every caste has a clear function. Compare that with the Imperium, where billions of people spend their entire lives pushing paper, praying in fear, or dying in wars they don't understand. The Imperium rules through fear and waste. The Tau move forward through unity and efficiency. Of course, this unity has a price. Individual freedom is pretty limited. If you're born into the Earth caste, you're building things for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. But in a galaxy this hostile, the Tau's everyone has a role mindset turns them into a society that's lean, organized, and actually functional. And that alone puts them ahead of half the other factions still stuck spinning their wheels. If the Tau have one golden ticket in the galaxy of 40,000, it's that they actually believe in progress. Imagine that. In a universe where the Imperium will execute you for inventing a toaster that browns bread differently, the Tau are actively encouraging scientists to keep tinkering, improving, and pushing boundaries. There's no robed tech priest chanting binary prayers over a sacred light bulb. If something breaks, an Earth caste engineer just fixes it. And if it can be made better, they do that too. Revolutionary, I know. The results are obvious on the battlefield. The Imperial Guard, the largest military force in the galaxy, marches to war with lasguns that individually are largely ineffective against armored units. The Tau Fire Warriors wield pulse rifles, sleek energy weapons that can punch through armor and actually threaten power-armored troops. Add in their railguns, which fire projectiles at insane hypersonic speeds, and you've got weapons capable of shredding even the toughest tanks. But weapons are just the start. The Tau are masters of battlesuit technology. The iconic crisis suits, broadside platforms, and riptides. These aren't just oversized mechs for show. They're mobile weapons platforms designed for flexibility and adaptability. Tau battlesuits can be customized with different loadouts, allowing them to shift roles mid-campaign depending on what the enemy throws at them. And then there are the drones, autonomous, mass-produced support units that handle everything from providing cover fire to acting as mobile shields. While the Imperium still throws human lives into the grinder as expendable resources, the Tau send in cheap drones to absorb hits. It's the difference between fighting a modern army and a medieval levy. The true advantage is how scalable Tau technology is. They're not relying on ancient relics from a golden age they barely understand. They can actually build more of what they need. No endless rituals, no machine spirits throwing a tantrum because the pilot didn't say the right prayer. The Tau's factories pump out battlesuits, drones, and tanks in staggering numbers, all without being chained to superstition. It's not that their tech is the most powerful in the galaxy. Eldar, Necrons, even the Mechanicus can outgun them in certain ways. But the Tau's advantage is consistency. Their tech works, it evolves, and it gets to the battlefield without centuries of religious red tape. In short, the Tau don't just survive because they're clever. They survive because they've built a war machine that adapts to the times, while their enemies are still polishing relics and burning heretics for daring to ask if a better engine might exist. It's not the biggest hammer in the toolbox, but it's the one that never rusts, and that makes all the difference. Here's the thing about the Tau. In the warp, they're basically background noise. Their souls are so faint, so dim, that demons barely notice they exist. If a human is a spotlight shining into the immaterium, a Tau is the equivalent of a dying candle shoved in a closet. And that might sound like a weakness, but personally, I think it's the biggest advantage they could ever hope for. For humans, psychers are everywhere, and with them comes the constant threat of demonic possession, insanity, or just exploding into a bloody warp rift because they sneezed the wrong way. The Imperium spends entire crusades stamping out witchcraft, all while desperately clinging to the Astronomicon and the Emperor's psychic lighthouse to keep their ships from vanishing into the void. Chaos loves humans precisely because they're bright, loud, and messy in the warp. The Tau, on the other hand, they're so spiritually quiet that chaos can't get a foothold. You can't tempt what you can barely perceive. This doesn't mean the Tau are immune. If they mess around with warp-tainted relics or get caught in a demonic incursion, they're still in danger. But here's the difference. Those situations are rare. For the Imperium, corruption is baked into daily life. For the Tau, it's a freak accident. There are no psychic epidemics tearing through their cities, no need for inquisitors burning half a planet because one guy had visions. The Tau don't even have sanctioned psychers because, well, they barely have psychers at all. That entire category of nightmare just doesn't exist for them. And this is massive for survival. Think about it. The Imperium is constantly bleeding resources, fighting a war on two fronts, against the material enemies they can see and the warp bleeding into reality everywhere else. The Tau only have to focus on the physical. Their armies fight wars of guns, tanks, and mechs without worrying about a demon popping out of someone's head mid-battle. In a galaxy shaped by chaos, the Tau's greatest strength is their insignificance. On paper, the Tau should be easy pickings. They don't have the population numbers of the Imperium, the sheer biomass of the Tyranids, or the endless green tide of the Orcs. If it was purely about throwing bodies at a problem, the Tau would have been extinct in a heartbeat. But they don't play that game. The Tau win by refusing to fight fair. Their whole doctrine boils down to two principles: Montka, the killing blow, and Kauyon, the patient hunter. Montka is all about decisive strikes. Hit fast, hit hard, and dismantle the enemy before they can react. Kauyon, by contrast, is about baiting your opponent, drawing them in, and then springing the trap. Between these strategies, the Tau fight wars like a chess player, while most of the galaxy is just flipping the board and screaming, "Wah!" Then there's their use of auxiliaries. The Tau don't fight alone, they bring friends. Kroot mercenaries add brutal melee muscle. Vespid fill the fast attack niche, and even disillusioned humans, called Guevesa, find a place in their armies. To the Imperium, this is unthinkable. Xenos and humans side by side, working together. But for the Tau, it's just practical. Why waste resources trying to do everything yourself when you can outsource to allies who are eager to sign on to the greater good? And the results speak for themselves. A Tau strike force is a carefully tuned machine. Fire warriors laying down withering pulse rifle fire, while XV-8 crisis battlesuits leap across the battlefield, delivering pinpoint strikes. Larger suits, like the Riptide, act as anchors, punching well above their weight against tanks or monstrous creatures. It's a combined arms approach that makes even a small Tau force able to challenge armies many times their size. The Tau don't match their enemies man for man. They don't have to. They fight smarter, faster, and with better coordination. Where an Imperial Guard regiment might hold a line until everyone is dead, the Tau instead adapt on the fly, reposition, and make the enemy bleed for every inch. Against the giants of the galaxy, brains and precision become their equalizers. Here's the thing. Most factions in 40K don't negotiate. They conquer. The Imperium shows up, demands fealty to the Emperor, and if you hesitate for more than 3 seconds, they're already lighting the pyres. The Orcs don't even ask. They just start the fight. Tyranids? Forget it. Your biomass is already on the menu. In that environment, the Tau stand out because they actually try talking first. The Tau's weapon isn't just the pulse rifle, it's the greater good. When they expand into new systems, they often give the locals a choice: fight a losing war against an advanced empire, or join up and enjoy trade, protection, and shiny new technology. And shockingly, a lot of people say yes, especially humans who are sick of the Imperium's tyranny. Imagine living your whole life under starvation-level tithes, with the looming threat of Inquisition witch hunts, only to have a blue-skinned diplomat show up offering actual food, education, and medicine. That's an easy sell. This is where the Tau's propaganda machine shines. They don't just conquer, they market themselves. Worlds are shown images of happy, united citizens living under the greater good, and it looks a whole lot better than the chains and firing squads of the Imperium. It's not that the Tau are saints. They still demand conformity, and dissenters don't exactly get a warm welcome, but they're subtle about it. They sell the dream first, then enforce it later. And that subtlety is their edge. In a galaxy where join or die is the default business model, the Tau thrive by being the exception. They don't need to win every battle if they can win hearts and minds before the first shot is fired. It's soft power in a setting that usually only respects brute force, and it works better than it should. For all their flashy tech, clever propaganda, and neat strategies, the Tau are still a small fish in a very, very big pond. Their empire is barely a speck compared to the Imperium's galaxy-spanning rule. At best, they control a handful of star systems and a growing sphere of influence. In other words, if the Imperium ever actually focused on them for more than 5 minutes, the Tau would be a footnote in a Crusade logbook. Their society also leans heavily on the ethereals, the spiritual and political leaders of the Tau. These guys are the glue that holds the caste system and the whole greater good ideology together. But that dependence is a double-edged sword. If the ethereals were to vanish, get corrupted, or lose credibility, Tau unity could collapse overnight. It's a centralized system with a single point of failure, and in this galaxy, that's dangerous. And let's not forget sheer brute force. The Tau can win against scattered guard regiments or small orc warbands, but if someone like the Tyranids or a full Wah ever committed to wiping them out entirely, the Tau would struggle. They don't have the endless manpower of the Imperium, the regenerative swarms of the Nids, or the insane resilience of the Necrons. One wrong war at the wrong time could bury them, but so far, that hasn't happened. The Tau's survival comes down to timing and luck as much as their strengths. The Imperium is too busy fighting literally everyone else to deal with them. Orcs love fighting them, but never unite long enough to crush them. Chaos barely notices them. It's not that the Tau are untouchable, it's that the galaxy is too distracted to finish the job. When you look at the Tau, they shouldn't be here. They're the youngest faction in Warhammer 40k. They don't have the raw numbers, the ancient power, or the psychic dominance of their rivals. By the brutal logic of the setting, they should have been wiped out the moment someone bigger noticed them. And yet, they're not just surviving, they're expanding. The secret comes down to a mix of advantages that no one else in the galaxy combines quite the same way. Their culture is unified under the greater good, meaning every Tau has a place and a purpose. Their technology is leaps ahead of most of their rivals, because they innovate instead of worshipping machines. Their weak warp presence makes them practically invisible to chaos, sparing them a nightmare the Imperium will never escape. And their diplomacy flips the script. Instead of endless extermination, they offer cooperation, which, shockingly, sometimes actually works. That doesn't mean they're invincible. Far from it. They're still tiny in the grand scheme, and one serious campaign by a major faction could erase them. But until that hammer falls, the Tau continue to be the galaxy's paradox, the little empire that could, thriving in a universe built to crush anything fragile. So maybe that's their true lesson. In a setting where survival usually means brutality, the Tau prove that you can also endure by being clever, cooperative, and just idealistic enough to keep going. For now, at least, because this is still Warhammer 40k, and in the end, no one gets a happy ending. That's it for today. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you people in the next one. Peace be upon ye.